What's going on, guys? It's fight season MMA, and today I want to make a video talking about the matchmaking after UFC 310. As we all know, there were so many good fighters on UFC 310 and a lot of fighters that are going to need fights coming very soon. So in this video, I kind of want to take a minute and look at a bunch of different fighters and who we could put up against one another to go make the most incredible fights moving forward. As we all know, Alexandre Pantoja won his UFC welterweight title and defended it again for a third time. We also got Shavkat Rakhmonov, Machado Garry, Cyril Gane, Alexander Volkov. So many different fighters inside this UFC organization that are going to need fights and are going to have some incredible fun matchups ahead of them. But if you guys enjoy the UFC content, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. That is the best way to help the channel grow. And while you're down there, please turn on the post notifications. But without further ado, let's jump into the video. Matchmaking all UFC fighters after UFC 310. So let's start with the UFC flyweight champion, Alexandre Pantoja. Now, who should he fight next? Now, he called out Mighty Mouse Demetrius Johnson after that fight, but Mighty Mouse is someone who is retired, and he came out after this fight and said that I am not returning myself back to the UFC or any organization if that to go fight. So I think that that fight is out of the question. Now, that would be the fight I would 100% want to see, but I don't think that that's going to be the fight at hand. But the fight I do think that is going to occur is going to be the third fight with Brandon Royval, or the fight that I really think that needs to happen. Brandon Royval is a guy who has lost to Alexandre Pantoja twice, but in his second fight, he looked pretty competitive in it. There was just some grappling scrambles that he got kind of overpowered in, but ever since that fight, UFC 296 co-main event last year, Brandon Royval has peeled off two main event wins, one at UFC Mexico City against Brandon Moreno in a very close fight, and beating Tatsuro Taira at UFC Vegas, I think 99, and that was an incredible fight as well. I look at Royval's style, and I really see that he can go in there and give Pantoja some issues. He was giving Pantoja some issues very late in their fight, but it was just too little too late where he kind of figured out what he needed to do. Now, I'm not saying that this should 100% be the fight with Pantoja, because genuinely, Pantoja has lapped the division, and I don't know who else could really be at the forefront. I guess Kai Kara-France could get the fight, but really, I do think that the Brandon Royval fight, he is easily the most deserving right now, beating Moreno and Taira in his last two wins, and genuinely, Royval is such a good fighter, and I could 100% seeing this be a very competitive fight between him and Pantoja for their third matchup. Now going to the other part of the co-main event, that was Mr. Kai Asakura. And what could we do with Kai Asakura? Because I see that, this was his first fight in the UFC, and not a lot of fighters have wanted to fight him. But the next step, I believe, is a main event in Japan. Let's go right back over there. Let's do Kai Asakura Fight Night main event against Tatsuro Taira, who was an undefeated fighter prior to fighting Brandon Royval, but he ended up losing in that one. But genuinely, why don't we see him go up against Kai Asakura? That would be a very fun fight. Tatsuro Taira has one of the toughest body triangles in UFC history. That's what Brandon Royval said. And genuinely, he is a very good up-and-coming prospect. Let's put that against another Japanese superstar in Kai Asakura, and that would be an incredible fight over there in the eastern part of the world. I think that that would be a great fight night main event. Very high stakes going at it, and have Taira and Kai Asakura fight in their own kind of country, in their own part. And I think that would be a very logical next step to do inside the UFC organization. Next, I want to talk about Shavkat Rakhmonov. Easiest fight to make. Shavkat versus Belal Muhammad. They faced off in the octagon last night. This was the fight that was scheduled, and ultimately it turned into a #1 contenders match with Ian Garry. But Shavkat got the win. He went out there, and I think that he would be a possibly Belal's toughest fight inside the UFC welterweight division, but I do see a lot from this fight with Ian Garry that Shavkat could get exposed by Belal with a bunch of pressure that Belal is going to be able to throw at him. Belal Muhammad is an absolute specialist within the organization. He has some of the best wrestling and grappling the UFC has in it right now, and I could 100% see Shavkat getting a little bit flustered by the pressure returning in Shavkat's direction from Belal Muhammad. Now, Belal is a very good fighter. He doesn't have the technical striking of someone like a Shavkat or any other really good striker inside the division. He might be the worst striker inside the top 10, but Belal's striking and pressure and his just game planning is so good that I think he could possibly go in there and beat Shavkat. But ultimately, this is the best welterweight fight that you could put on right now, and is genuinely a fight that I'm super happy looking forward to. Now, Ian Machado Garry took this fight with Shavkat Rakhmonov on short notice, kind of. He was supposed to fight Joaquin Buckley a week later, and that turned into Colby Covington, but he ended up taking a new opponent on 3 weeks' notice, that being Shavkat Rakhmonov. Now, Shavkat is one of the toughest fights inside the UFC welterweight division, and I think that this fight only boosts Ian Garry's stock so much. So who do I think we should do? I don't think Ian Garry should fight down in the rankings. I think there's one guy who is also really, really high in my book that this fight would be incredible. They're under the same management. He He actually called Ian Garry out after his last fight. Let's do Ian Garry versus Sean Brady, welterweight main event in a fight night. That would be an incredible fight to be had. Sean Brady is probably the best UFC grappler right now. I'm gonna be 100% serious when I say that. He has some of the best Brazilian jiu-jitsu, wrestling, and he went out there and out-grappled Gilbert Durinho Burns, who might be the greatest MMA grappler in history. I look at Sean Brady and I see how many layers of the game he has, and truly, he's just some of the best, honestly, inside the organization. And Ian Garry, that would be a very tough fight for Garry, considering that Sean Brady has such a heavy wrestling approach. But I see him fight Shavkat, and that was probably a tougher fight than Sean Brady. And I see that this would be an incredible fight to be made. Sean Brady is someone that really no one wants to fight. Ian Garry is also someone that no one wants to fight. Why don't we put these two against each other? Fight night main event. This would be an incredible main event to be had between two absolute goons inside the UFC welterweight division. And I think that this could possibly even be a fight to send up a number one contender match for either one of these guys. Sean Brady, one of the most dominant welterweights right now, beating Gilbert Burns by 5-round decision, beating Kelvin Gastelum in their fight, and genuinely, this would be an absolute incredible fight between two of the best up-and-coming prospects in the welterweight division. Now, looking at Ciryl Gane. Ciryl Gane lost this fight with Alexander Volkov. I don't know what to say other than Ciryl Gane can't fight for the title next. No way that you can really say this. I, in my personal opinion, would do a rematch between Alexander Volkov and Ciryl Gane for the third time. This fight was wrong, in my opinion. You put these guys in there, fight night main event, and have them really duke it out for a number one contender UFC heavyweight bout. I look at this time, and I see John Jones and Tom Aspinall probably fighting in July of 2025. So you do this probably sometime in June or April of 2025. Give these guys a little bit of time off, and genuinely, that would probably be the best thing to do. Ciryl Gane doesn't deserve the title shot. Volkov, in my opinion, deserves the title shot. Just rematch these guys one more time, see what they can go in there and do, because ultimately, I think that this was an absolutely horrendous mistake by all the judges. Bryce Mitchell had a win over Kron Gracie. I'm not a massive Kron Gracie fan. I knew that this would be a win for Bryce Mitchell, but what can we do for Bryce Mitchell next? And I'm looking at the current standings of the UFC featherweight division, and I see Calvin Kattar probably as the best potential matchup. Bryce Mitchell is a very good fighter. He has not fought Calvin Kattar yet. Kattar is a couple spots ahead of him, and I think that is pretty deserving for Bryce, considering that he has had a year layoff. He kind of came in and had a good win against Gracie, and I think that him going up against Calvin Kattar would be a very fun fight, possibly as a co-main event to a fight night card. Bryce Mitchell is a very fun fighter, considering that he's from Arkansas. He's got that, country strength and whatnot, but genuinely, he could be challenging for a top spot inside the UFC featherweight division. And I think with a win over someone like Calvin Kattar would be an incredible fight to make for Bryce Mitchell. Dominic Reyes had a very dominant win over Anthony Smith, and I know Anthony Smith wasn't 100% there, but Dominic Reyes went in there and did his job. What could we do for Mr. Reyes in this fight? And I think a fight with Volkan Oezdemir, two guys who I don't think have fought before, go in there, number 9 versus number 12, and that would be a very good fight. Oezdemir is coming off a loss against Carlos Ulberg, and Dominic Reyes is on a 2-fight win streak. This gives Dominic Reyes a couple opponents above him and gets Volkan Oezdemir someone who is a little bit below him, just to see if he can get back on track. I think that this would be a very fun, entertaining fight, probably with a knockout in store, and genuinely, Dominic Reyes has looked like himself in old form with this fight and win over Dustin Jacoby and Anthony Smith. I do think that the next logical thing would be giving someone above, and I think Volkan Oezdemir would be the proper opponent. Now, looking at Mr. Movsar Evloev, he beat Aljamain Sterling in a very close fight, but a very good fight. And what do I really see next for Movsar? He is 19-0 for professionally. He's like 9-0, 10-0 inside the UFC. So what do we do for Movsar? I mean, do we just give him a title shot? And I think the answer to that is honestly yes, unless Alexander Volkanovski is going to fight for the title next. And then I think we do Diego Lopez versus Movsar Evloev 2. I think that makes the most sense. Number one contender match between Diego Lopez and Movsar. Those two previously fought UFC 288, but Diego Lopez took the fight on 5 days' notice, and I think that this would be an incredible rematch to be had between these two individuals. Diego Lopez, one of the best prominent featherweights right now inside the organization, and Movsar, as we all know, is 19-0. This is a great fight to be made. One striker grappler in Diego Lopez had put Movsar in some incredible positions, like an incredible knee bar in that first fight. But, give Diego Lopez a full training camp, give Movsar a really good fight in number one contender shot against Lopez, and I think that is the best thing to do with both of those guys. And the next fighter that I want to talk about is Aljamain Sterling. Sterling is coming off this loss against Evloev, a very, very close fight between these two. And I don't think you give someone out like Aljo a very low drop in competition. I think you give him someone that is a little bit lower than him, but someone who is a very prominent figure inside this division. Let's give him Lerone Murphy. I think that would be a very fun fight. Aljo can go out there and beat an undefeated fighter inside the featherweight division, show he's still got it, and then Lerone Murphy could use Aljo as a big stepping stone, a massive name, if he's really that good inside the welterweight division. I think this could possibly even be a Fight Night main event. This would be a very good fight between Aljo and Lerone Murphy. I really do think that this would be a fight to propel either one of those guys into a possible title, challenger in their next one, considering that Aljo has had such a prominent statement in the bantamweight division and then is now 1-1 in the featherweight division, and Lerone Murphy's undefeated. Both these guys incredible fighters, and I think that would be the best thing to do for both of them. Thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Fight Season MMA, and please let me know what you think about these matchups down below in the comment section. It's kind of hard to really go in there and firmly match up every single opponent, but I really do think that a lot of these matchups make a lot of sense for these guys, especially Pantoja fighting Royval. There's not a lot of stuff going on inside this division. Ian Garry versus Sean Brady. That is a banger of a fight, especially if you enjoy MMA grappling and a full mixed martial artist display and everything else in between. I look at a lot of these guys, and they're going to be taking a little bit of time off to get back inside the octagon, but really, I see a bunch of different promising matchups coming in the very near future. But thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Fight Season MMA. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe if you guys enjoy the UFC content. And while you're down there, please turn on the post notifications just so you guys are always notified and alerted as UFC content releases every single day. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will catch you guys very soon with more UFC content and news.